day, everybody. This is Manny from Manny's Makings, and welcome. Just a quick note, I'm not forgetting to do this, so I want to do it right off the bat. We're going to be making some quickie little earrings today with some wire weaving, but quick note, if you need the list of tools and materials that are used in any project, they're always listed below. And please like and subscribe. Love to hear from you. Don't hesitate to comment as well if you want to see something different or didn't quite understand something. I don't have any problems getting back to you and sort of letting you know. So today we're going to make this fun little earring. And this is just a howlite, and I got this from Fire Mountain Gems, you can see. And this is a 14mm, and they look like little Smarties. So there's a strand of them. They come in different colors. They're kind of fun. And they make a quickie little earring. And you could do this particular, what I'm doing today, with pretty well any kind of stone. You just have to adjust the length of the wire that you need to start with so that you can do different things. And just to give you an example, I had some fun with these feldspar, pink feldspar stones here. They're kind of odd shaped and a little funky, and I just did a wrap around them, you know, that sort of just spirals around them. They look like a little bit of a lantern. They're kind of fun. So you can just same weaving, same kind of pattern. It's quite easy. So let's get started. So what you're going to need today is ParaWire. I'm using 20 gauge instead of 18 that I normally use. I know that's hard to see. 20 gauge and antique copper. I happen to really love antique copper, so I use it a lot. 26 gauge is my weaving wire, and then you're going to need some tools: round nose pliers, nippers or flush cutters, chain nose pliers. Those ones are the bent ones, and those ones aren't. And these are wire straighteners. I've already used them to straighten my wire and cut off two pieces. So I have two 16cm pieces that I cut, and that's about 6.5 inches, I believe, for those of you who are living in the US. And as I said, I have one left to do, so I'm going to see what happens. So we're going to put some of this stuff out of the way so I don't get my wires all caught up in them. Oh yeah, and you need a couple of ear hooks, obviously. I didn't have any antique copper, so I'm just using copper ones. So we're going to start with the two pieces of wire. So you're going to start with the bottom one first. Whatever, just pick one of the two. And this is a really simple weave. And we're going to start about 1/4 up, or about 5 centimeters. So, well, it's not 1/4, but about the 5 centimeter mark is where we're going to start weaving, and because we need that 5 centimeters to go up through the bead, and it's going to become your head pin that ends up being what you do a wrap loop on, that it secures the top of. So if you look at this here, it secures the top of the, it finishes the bead, the little weaved piece. Okay, so you're just gonna, I usually just start one way or the other, doesn't really matter. You want to do 3 wraps, 2, 3, and as you can see, let me just zoom in a bit here. Let's see if I can work in a zoomed in area today. So mine are pretty far spread. They always are when I first start something. And I don't leave a lot of tail. I probably should, but I don't because I hate wasting wire. So I'm just pushing them in with my thumbs. You can use a pair of pliers if you need to, and then I just hold on to this one wire and this. And so then I grab my second wire and I just put it on top, and I sort of make sure that they're both sort of the same length. So, you know, you can push them around at this point still. Okay, so this is called the 3-3 weave. It's a really simple, pretty quick weave. I'm just getting my wires sorted out here because the top one wants to be on the bottom. And I just fan them out a little bit on the ends here to make it a little bit easier to find the little slot. So just making sure they're equal. So, and then I go 3 times around both. 1, 2, 3. And then I do, now this first wrap you didn't want to do too tight because you have to bring this back down and in the middle. And if you do too tight, you won't be able to get that back down in the middle. So 1, 2, 3. And I'll do it again a little slower. And let's bring this right down. We'll zoom right in really tight so you can see this. I think that's as tight as I can get. Okay, so let's see if I can do this without moving. So 3 times around the whole thing. So 1, And I'm just laying them down beside each other, 2. And since I'm doing this, I can just sort of hold my wire like this so that it makes it easy to keep them nice and flat, 3. And then I bring it back up like I was going to do a 4th, but then I stop, go down the middle, and push in. So there's 1. Bring down the middle, 2. Bring it over, bring it down the middle, 3. So that's what you do, and you need these little top bumps. I'm calling them top bumps. You need 24 of them. So this 3 bottom and 3 top makes 1 pattern. You need 24 patterns, and when you get 24 patterns done on this, you need to come back. So I'll come back when I get that done. Okay, I'm back. So I've gotten the 24 on here, so let me just zoom out so you can see a little bit more than just 2 inches here. So I'm zoomed out. So this is when the fun begins. First of all, we got to get rid of this little tail wire. So this is what I always do, is I always try to finish it between I want to finish it between 2 wires. Remember? So I'm going to stick this down in between these 2 wires, because right now it's wrapped around this side. I can see it. So I have to bring it down between the 2. And I'm going to turn it to the other side, and then I'm going to clip it. So remember, if you remember right from before, see if I can get this to focus. There we go. I just take my nippers, get right in tight, sort of leaning them on the one wire from the other wire, and clip. And then I have nothing bugging me. So there's basically, and as you can see, it gets a little twisted. Sometimes this is pretty light gauge wire. It's a small bead. I didn't want to go with really heavy. This side looks like it's completely coiled, and this side has the little uppy pieces. So when we do this next piece, first of all, we need to find which side has like 5 centimeters or more. So that has 5 centimeters exactly, and this one has 5 centimeters exactly. Now I didn't do that on purpose, but I do want this wire, this weaving wire, to be the one I use. That's my preferable choice. So we're going to take the coily part where it's all coiled, and we're going to put that to the top. It's going to go against the bead. And we're going to take this piece here, right where the last 3 single wraps are around here, and we're going to put it up. Move this weaving wire out of the way, and I'm going to stick my bead on. Ta-da! My bead's on. So now we're going to just sort of hold on right where the bead and meet together, and we're gonna bring it around you know what, I'm doing this backwards. You know why? Because it's the other earring, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna make them matching, and they're gonna be sisters, not twins. So bring this around, and when I get to the top, see how this wire is like a head pin? It's pretty thin gauge, so you got to be careful with this, because you're putting something that's pretty. This is heavy gauge now because it has lots of wires involved. You're going to bring it around the back, and I'm bringing it in really tight, almost like I'm squishing it around that wire, and then I'm going to bring it up over the top and back down the other side. Okay. And we're bringing this back down around the bottom of the bead. So at this point, I take a look at the other one, and I go, how did I do that? So this needs to come down just a little bit more. Just want to make sure that this sort of looks the same. It's getting pretty close. I can tweak it a little bit at the end, but that's okay. And I'm aiming to hit back to this wire down here, because that's the other center point. So if you look closely here, see if you can see this. Where's my little pointy sticky? I have a pointy sticky now. I got an all. Yay. If it'll focus. Okay. So right here is where the wire is going into the bead. And I want to bend this wire down here, at the same point, so that they're like this. So I bend it back here, it's too far back. I got to bend it here. Okay. So I'm just going to bring this up a little bit, and then bend it, and I'm just using this my fingers. You can use, see, I'm just bending it. Okay. So I have a couple of choices. What am I going to do with that wire? Well, what I did last time is I took that second wire, so I didn't need to bend it. Look at that. So we're going to straighten it out again. So I'm going to take it, and I'm going to use my pliers or my straighteners, and I'm just going to take that little bit of a tiny kink out. Nothing major, it's gone. And I brought this around so that it would support the back of the bead. So if you look at the back of this one, it just supports the back of the bead, just to keep the bead from shifting around in there. You don't need a lot of support. It's the earrings. This is a howlite bead. It's pretty light, pretty flexible. So let's see, how did I do this? I came around this way. So I brought that around same way as this other one's going, and I wrapped it around as tight as I could, sort of holding this wire in place with my thumb. And I'm basically wrapping it just one time and stopping at the back in the middle. And then I need to cut it off. So I need to bring that up where I can see it. So just give me a second. Or I need to move my lamp, one of the two. Whoops, sorry, hit the camera. So I'm cutting it off. Do some of this other stuff so it actually focuses for you. I'm cutting it off just short of the halfway of the back point, and the reason I'm doing that is because when I wrap that tight in it, it's going to tweak it in a little bit and bring it to the halfway point at the back. So I've got my flat side of my cutters to my work. What's remaining, so not what I'm cutting off. Maybe that's a little easier to sort of understand. Oh, so got to get in there. There, cut it off. Now you can cover that. I wear glasses and I'm behind a big magnifying glass, so I'm not so worried about it. But if you don't wear glasses and you're not behind a big magnifying glass, definitely you know, get yourself either wear some safety glasses or you know, cover that tip up when you're cutting it. So, and now I'm just taking it and I'm just tweaking it in ever so lightly, because I don't want to feel that on the back. So I can still feel that just a little bit. So I want to tweak that in just a little bit more. Okay, so now she's gone. So that's secured. That's not going anywhere. It's got a single wrap on the front. Looks fine. Everything looks fine on this side. So now I got this bottom piece hanging out. So let me see. What did I do on the last one? On the last one, yes. I brought it and I want to make a really tight curl in this corner here, in the bottom corner here. So I took it and I'm taking my fingers and I'm squishing it together. So I'm starting this little bend and then I'm bringing it together, and then at this point I'm pressing. See, it's making a little cockeyed on this side. That's fine. I'm pressing this really tight and I'm bringing these around really tight. So it's getting there, bringing it around, bringing it around. So I just want to keep bringing it around, keep tweaking it. I'm going to get that little loop as tight as I can. And I'm pulling pretty hard on these other wires. So you can use these pliers if you want to at the tail end. If you have control with pliers, I have more control with my fingers. So, okay, so then ends up with a little loop, and that's going to be the bottom, right? So the little loop is the start of the bottom. So then I thought, okay, well, that's kind of cool. So let's see, what else can I do here? So when they got around to this part, I thought I can take and do a little spiral with the one that's on the top this way, and I can then bring this around further and then do a spiral with the one that's on the other way. So obviously I have too much left, and I still have this weaving wire. But I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the weaving wire. So I'm just going to tweak this around just a little bit more. I want it nice and tight. Okay. So at this point, I can actually cheat because my weaving wire is still attached, and it's attached back on this side still. So I could actually cheat and bring this across and tie this in. So I just hooked that little loop, that little hooky thing I made, and bring it around. Cool, huh? So in case I didn't mention it, I started with basically nose to tip of arm length. About 1 yard of the weaving wire when I started, okay? and I can see that it's a little kinky there, so I'm going to fix that little kinky. And this is where I'm going to be careful because I don't want to mar the wire at this point. You're the boss of the wire's not the boss of you. So I'm going to bring that around and make it a little happier. So I'm just going to take this and thread it sort of between the bead and the weaving right here. And because I want to secure this in place, and then I can get rid of the weaving wire. So there's one. Nice and tight. Two. And you can always use your fingers or your thumb or your tool to push this in. I'm just trying not to hide it, sort of part of the end wiring there. And I'm going to show you up close when I get it there. I just straighten that end out. One more in there. Come on, you can get in there. I know you have space. There we go. So lots of space. And I'm watching when I'm pulling the wire, for those of you who may be newer to wire weaving. And this is a really simple, easy project that, you know, you can play with and just do what you want. When the two wires were straight, I often thought this would make a really great, like, bracelet link. It's, you know, before I made the little curly Q, if I had fastened this off and just made a wrapped eye on this end and wrapped one of these around it and then wrapped it, you know what I mean, made another eye pin basically hanging out this end, I could make two wrapped loops and then connect them to the next one. So this would be really cool. It's small. It's like, when you see it's on my finger, it's the size of my fingertip. It's nice and tiny, so you can do lots of fun things with this. And you can do it with bigger beads. I have these larger howlite size beads that I love, fun colors, bright colors. So, you know, you've got the jade and the yellow and all kinds of other colors, and so you can make bigger ones. Yeah, so anyways, back to what I'm doing. Third one around. So I'm making sure that the wire's not getting kinked as I'm coming around, and I'm pulling tight and sort of squeaking it in. So now I want to cut it off so that it ends up underneath, because I don't want this poking out. So take my nippers and I'm going to cut it off. So I can bring it up nice and close here. So I'm going to cut it off about that much longer. You can see where it ends. See if I can get enough light on it there for you. So I'm going to cut it off about there. And don't worry, this weaving wire will not go to waste. I can use it as part of a coil, whatever. So I'm going to hang on to that. So you could have used a little bit less. So now I'm taking that and I'm tucking it under. I'm just pushing first because this wire's actually left a little too much. So I'm going to go back in and cut a little more. There we go. And I'm just pushing that in. And I need to get a pair of Limströms, but I don't have them right now, so, and I don't want to put out the $70 for the really good, really fine tip Limströms, so I have to do the best I can with what I've got. So just getting that wrapped underneath there, making sure I can't feel it, it's out of the way. So now I have these two left here. Don't worry about this yet, this is fine. And so I need to do a coil, and I'm thinking that's probably a little bit on the long side for a coil. So I'm going to take a little bit off. So that this was like 5 centimeters of bare wire left, remember, on this side. So I'm going to take, you know, a good centimeter off. And that's not a lot of waste. I'm quite happy with that. Round nose pliers. Take my skinny side. Put it in. Now, which way did I do this one? I curled this way, so yeah. So I'm taking this, let me zoom in again so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry about my chewed up fingers, this is all callus from wire weaving. So I've been working on some fun sculptural pieces, trying to figure out how to make a little bit more sculptural pieces. So, and maybe someday I will share them once I get a little bit more comfortable. So this is a little, look at the size of that hoop, that loop, that's like massive. So I need to tweak this down. And I'm trying not to mar my wire, so I'm trying to be gentle with it. So I got it into a smaller loop, a tighter loop. And if your wire, the very tip of your wire, isn't like, see how that's kind of flat, that very tip of my wire? It's kind of, it's not going to make a nice circle. You can take it and just cut off a little bit, the very tip. Now these little tiny pieces I'm careful with, because that's a really tiny little piece and I don't want that in my feet or my eyeballs, even though I have all this stuff on. So I'm going to bring it around, and I'm basically using my pliers. You can use your fingers too, your hands, whatever, just making sure it's flat. What I'm doing is making the wire lay against the, making the wire lay against the wire, so that everything's nice and flat. And if it isn't flat, you take your flat nose pliers and flatten it out. Okay, and then we just spiral this in. And I'm trying to be gentle on the amount of pressure that I'm putting, and you can move your, see, now that could have scratched my stuff, so I got another thing I'm going to tell you about. Pliers. These are bad pliers because they have a cutter in them. But most pliers that you use on this kind of work don't. So, but the farther back you get to this hinge, the more strength you have with less pressure. So if you're having trouble with things, I'm just going to flip this up a little bit. You can put it farther back in your pliers, and you have to grip less. Here you don't have to, you know, like really tight, and which won't dent your wire as much. Because I know that's, as a beginner, that was the worst part of, you know, I don't want to mar my wire up so it looks like crap. When I get to about this stage, I then switch to my fingers, because for me, that's the only way I can guarantee that. And I've got this out from my work a little bit, which is fine. And I'm just stuffing it in this corner. And I'm kind of okay with that. This one's a little bit bigger than the other one, see? But not by much. I'm okay with that. They're on opposite ears. And if anybody's actually checking me that closely, if you're making this for a business, then you need to get a lot more practice. So I'm going around this first. I'm going to turn this around inside this other loop. I just want a little bare wire showing. And that's just my choice. And sitting it sort of, see how it looks like a giant S here? Just sitting it inside that other loop. And this one, I want to curl the other way. I'm going to cut about 1 centimeter off, the same as I did before. Flat side towards what I'm leaving. Flip it off. Then you get a nice flush cut on the end. See how it's flush? It's not pointed. And this one, I gotta swirl this way. So I turn it so that this is how I swirl. Some people swirl away from themselves. I can do that. So I can show you. So you can swirl away from yourself, or you can swirl towards yourself. So what you're trying to do is put the very tip of the wire, so you can't really feel it, just barely, in the smallest part of the smallest pair of needle nose pliers you have. And you're just spinning it around. Spinning it around. And at some point, it starts to get close to connecting. And when it does, you just keep going. And for a little while, you can sort of just keep using your pliers. And you can, my one end tip, I don't know if you notice, is a little bigger than the other tip. So if I'm using my smaller tip, I have to flip it around. So I'm laying the wire on top of the wire, so that it's laying on top of each other as tight as I can get it. And I'm spinning this around and spinning this around and spinning this around with my fingers now. So that is what you have so far. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty close. Not perfect. Pretty dang close. Now you can tweak it at this point. So if this is spread wider on this one, or around the stone, then you can spread this wider. You can push this down a little bit. The top, push this down a little bit. And what I tend to do is I push sort of on the bare wire between the weaves, so I'm not messing my weave up. Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. You can push out a bit, make it happy. Straighten this all out so it's sitting at 90 degrees, or like right straight in line with this, because this one's straight in line with that. So I'm happy. It looks like I have 3 little sort of twirlies coming down the end. So now we have to just deal with this top part. Let me back out just a little bit here. Okay, so this is just a basic wrap loop. So I use these pliers because I'm going to need them in my hands in like 5 seconds. So I just take the width I'm going to want to be wrapped. So this is another place where it's kind of a good place that you can cheat a little bit. So if you put the 2 on top of each other, I need to see how much stem, this is what I'm calling the stem, how much stem I need to have wrapped so that they're both the same length. So I can see that I'm going to, and I'm looking from the side, I'm kind of looking at behind it, when this one's on top of this one, I can see that I'm going to need about this width on my pliers, not the tip, to give me enough wraps so that they're both going to be the same. Now I'm going to turn this sideways. Okay, I just had a glitch, so hopefully that's not too bad. I'm going to turn this sideways, and then I'm going to bend it 90 degrees over my pliers. So that's what I have. Okay, and then I'm going to take the tip. Now I can check against the other one. If you're not sure, I have my other piece in, so I had the very small tip in the very end. That's basically what I had, and I know that, so I'm going to put these right in that little crook there. And I bring this towards myself. That's my tendency. When I get so that it looks like a gooseneck, I adjust my pliers so they're coming out of the top, and I bring this around to the back and make my little guy with the scarf. And at this point is when you adjust your whole pin and make sure that sort of it's sitting in the middle, everything's happy. And then I bring the scarf down just a smidge because I don't need it up that high. So then I take my pliers. Now this is, again, remember I said you hold it farther back? So I tend to grip this back down here and I sort of cover almost the whole hole. And then this wire is really short. So I'm going to take my second pair of pliers, because I got strong fingers, but, and I know some of you that are watching me go, I can't do that with my fingers. I know. It was really hard for me to do this with my fingers too. But I actually have more trouble doing it with pliers than I do with my fingers. So I'm going to wrap this, and I'm pulling so that it comes in just below the neck there. So I'm going to bring this up so you can see. See, it's just below the neck, and then I'm wrapping it around. I put in my pliers again, and I'm wrapping it around. So I got to bring it down where I can actually function, not up in the air. 2. So I can see I'm getting close. I need one more wrap. There's space for one more wrap in there. So I'm going to grab again, and I'm going to bring it around. Now when the wire gets this short, it gets a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to just straighten this out a little bit. So I'm just putting my pliers against it and making it sort of more flat. There's a couple of choices you have. One of the choices I like to do is I basically bring my pliers in and I gently, I don't know if you can see this, I'm just going do 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 do. I'm just pushing very lightly, not too hard. If I left myself another centimeter or 2, I would have been perfect. I'm not worrying so much about the hole will work itself out. So you can bring it in slowly. The other thing you can do is to grab your pliers like this and sort of bend it towards it. Now I should really be holding the loop. So I'm going to flip hands because I am right-handed. So I'm going to hold this there, and I'm going to grab this way, and I can tweak it around. And then I'm going to go do to do to do to do to do to do. See how I just sort of do to do to do to do to do little gentle pushes, bringing it around. I know I'm a goo ball. So I'm almost there. You can see I just have this little nubbly thing that I need to cut off some of it, partly because the wire is kind of lit. So I'm going to just take it flat to my work, and then I got to tuck in that end, same as I always did. So taking it, bringing that around, bringing that around, bringing that around, and she's tucked in. So everything's tucked in. And because they're earrings, and the ear hook, wire hook goes this way, sort of lays on this plane here like that, and this one's on this plane, I don't have to add anything else. I can just add the ear hook. So let's add the ear hook. So this is a store-bought ear hook. I often make mine on this one here. You can see that I made my own ear hook. I like my ear hooks really nice and long, so I don't have to worry about losing my earrings, especially if this has a little tiny bit of weight to it. So, but if you do store-bought ones, and a lot of people when they're starting, that's what they have. They go and buy some findings, because making your own findings sometimes can be difficult for people. This has got a funky ball on it, and this ball likes to slide into this hole. So I basically take my fingers and hold on to the ball as best I can. But take my fingers, I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so I'm taking my fingers and I got my fingernail holding onto that ball. And I'm taking this, now don't twist out, you want to twist up. Like you're just opening, I don't know how to explain it, you're just opening it up. So it goes like that, like a little corkscrew versus, see how it still looks like a full circle from the front, but from the side it's open. Now, these things, the rounded part at the top is the front. So I need to put, this is my back wire, so I need to put it facing that way. See, it just went up, the ball went up into the little hook. So grab a hold of it with my fingernail again, and do that. And then we just close it up. Okay. So now, as you can see, I have a set of earrings. So if I can tweak it a little bit, this spiral is not the same place as the other spiral, you know, play with it a little bit, but I have a lovely set of earrings that I would be quite happy to wear with a green sweater, or it's Christmas time coming. You could do this with silver and you know, jade beads. You could do it with basically any shape. You can do it with these kind of beads, round beads. This is a what do you call it? The blown glass kind of beads. So you can use those. I only use glass and stone beads. I don't use plastic beads, but if you want to do a quickie pair with some really beautiful, sparkly, you know, those types of beads, let's see, you could do it with, here's a funny black glass bead that has some striping in it, a little bit of striping in it, you can see. You could do it with those. So how you figure this out is, when you stick your one end in here and you wrap around, that's the circumference of the bead. So plus you need extra for the wrap over extra here and for the little spirally bit here. So if you take the circumference of your bead, so if I'm using a big bead like this, let's say, I could take a wire, I could take a piece of string, I could take a piece of tape, I could whatever I wanted and figure out what the circumference is. And your safe bet is always to double it. And then I would need more than 5 centimeters, because this is a big glass bead here. That's kind of fun. It's got some gold fleck in it. So you need enough to do your wrap loop. So you need to give yourself space to do your wrap loop. So when you're trying to figure this out, that's what you'd figure out. You need to figure out how wide is this bead? Okay, let me see. So I take a look and I go, ooh, that's at almost 3 centimeters in width. It's like 2.5, 2.7, 2.8. So 2.8 centimeters wide, right? And so I need 2.8 centimeters wide plus another, say, a good 2 centimeters, probably 3 centimeters to be on the safe side above that. So that's how much spare wire you'd have to have before you started weaving. Then you take the circumference, plus the little twisty that you need on the top, plus a little extra on the bottom. Right? So that's your length that you need to add next. Right? So you have the one length that you need here, plus the piece for the wrap loop, plus what you need to go for circumference, plus some extra. Right? And then you have the same amount of wire left over on this end to do embellishments with. When something bigger like this, I could have taken one and ran a coiled on one of them and brought it back up to the top. You can do a couple of spirals, a couple of ways, and back up to the top. So it's up to you what you do, but this starts you at a basic, this gives you a basic pattern that you can use for different size beads, that's simple and easy, that has, it's a beautiful piece of wire work. Anybody would be happy to get that set of earrings for Christmas. As you've seen, I literally was off camera for 3, maybe 4 minutes to do the wire wrapping. If you're newer, you're going to be a little longer, but even if you said, okay, it takes me half an hour to do the wire wrapping, it's not that long. So definitely give it a shot. And I want to thank you for watching me today, and I hope you learned something. I hope you experiment with wire and play with wire, because wire is fun to play with. And these ones I actually made, I mirrored these ones, if I can get them to lay where I want them to. Maybe not. Where's the mirroring? There it is. Okay. So these ones are actually mirrored. So I, you know, the best I could, because the beads are a slightly different size, and there's, as you can see, one smaller than the other and that kind of stuff. But yeah, thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day. And if you don't watch me again before Christmas, take care and have a Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.